Welcome to the ATA Podcast, where each month we bring you news and insights from the American Translators Association.
Let's get started with a few quick announcements.
Book your room now for the ATA Annual Conference, October 22nd through the 25th. A limited number of rooms at the Westin Boston Seaport Hotel, the site of the conference, have been reserved at a discount for attendees. The special rates are available until September 29 or as space allows. Learn more at atanet.org/ATA66/hotel.
Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Ho, and I'm joined today by Karen Leube. Karen is a certified translator and also a translator trainer based in Aachen, Germany. She has taught at the universities of Heidelberg and Mainz, as well as numerous continuing education courses for translators and interpreters. She has 12 book translations under her belt and also specializes in international development. Karen is currently the German Language Division Administrator and received ATA's Dynamo Award in 2023. We'll see why in a minute. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come by. I appreciate it.
So I've asked you to come today because you have organized events for the German Language Division, the GLD, in Germany. I have never heard of any other group doing this. Maybe they exist, but I don't know about them. So can you give us a brief overview quickly? How many have there been? How long have you been doing this?
So we have been growing incrementally for the past about 15 years. A group of us most of us are American, but some of us are Germans with an affinity to the US, noticed that we met each other at the conference every year in October, and at some point said, it's nice to meet at the conference, but we actually don't live that far from each other. There's not really any reason why we have to go overseas to get to see each other, and decided in 2011 to meet up for a meal in Wiesbaden, Germany. And so I had two sidekicks who helped me to organize a meal. That was Barbara Müller-Grant, who is an interpreter based in Wiesbaden, and Birgit Foster-Bremer, who was from near Bonn. And Birgit basically trawled the ATA directory to try to find other ATA members who were living in Germany, and Barbara reserved a table for us, and we met up in the train station, actually, in Wiesbaden at a restaurant. And I think we attracted about just shy of 15 people, some of whom have made a big trip to come just to meet other ATA members in Germany. And we realized it was a good thing. And that was the beginning of what is culminating now this weekend in Vienna as a 3-day event that's now an annual event with usually a city tour, the day before, a pre-workshop dinner, to a full day and a half day of educational sessions, usually with an invited speaker, and a networking dinner on the Saturday night. But I would say it grew kind of organically, sort of bit by bit, and until it took on this formal nature that it has now.
Wow, so it's grown from just lunch to a full-blown conference.
I think our motto this year was from Kaffee Klatsch, which is in German anyway, just getting together, have a cup of coffee and do some chatting, to Kaffee House, which is where you meet up in Vienna. So, yeah.
So how many people are required to organize this 3-day conference?
So we have a kind of a regular setup, which is that every year at the end of one conference, someone usually offers to do it where they're from. So we usually have a local organizer on the ground, and oftentimes two people, who will scout out a place and will reserve the restaurants. Then there's myself. I now have a formal position with the GLD. There was a position created for me after a couple years when they noticed these things are becoming a regular thing. And so I'm the so-called European coordinator. And we now include people not just from Germany, but any place in Europe. So there's about 160 of us who live in Europe, And generally, I'd say between 30 and 40 people come to our events. And now often people come from the US. Oftentimes there are members who are originally from Germany who come and they combine the workshop with a family visit, which is what lots of us do going the other way when we go to the conference or to other ATA events. And then there's usually at least one other person arranging content. The European coordinator who took over after me, Ellen Leube, she is in charge of registration, and we have kind of a membership coordinator as well. So we have a dedicated listserv as well for this group that is made up of about 60 of us who live outside the US but are ATA members.
So you said it's in Vienna this year. Is it in a different city every year?
So far, it's been in a different city every year. That's right. We had this lunch meetup in Wiesbaden, and the key has always been to be very creative with venues. So usually the local person tries very hard to find a venue that A, is inexpensive, and B, is low risk. That's important because the divisions don't have any dedicated funding from ATA headquarters. And so there are actually stipulations in the division handbook about having in-person events besides the events that are at the annual conference. And so we're encouraged to pair up with a local chapter. Chapters do have funding for events. You'll probably remember when you renew your membership that you're asked if you want to be affiliated with a certain chapter. Usually it's a local one where you live. But we don't have any chapters outside the US. And so we have to be very creative with our planning to be sure that we don't put ourselves at risk. We can't book things and just assume that we'll have enough members to cover the costs. And at some point, we started getting a subsidy from headquarters for our events, so that we could, for example, have an invited speaker and know that we would have enough funds to cover the speaker. But we try to be very much running things on a shoestring, being very creative. Some things are more low risk to plan here in Europe. For example, it's not a problem to get a banquet room at a restaurant and have everyone pay their own way without putting a big deposit down on the room, which is, in my experience, not the case that we have in the US when there's a larger group of people.
So what other kinds of support do you get from ATA headquarters? You talked about some subsidies now. What about logistics, advertising? Is this, so this is a sanctioned event?
So yes. So I, as the European coordinator, as the former European coordinator, I'm now the administrator. I talk with headquarters. I let the board know that we're planning this event. The divisions committee chair needs to be aware of the event. And I have to set up a budget and give an idea of what we plan to cover in the workshop and what the point of the whole thing is. And so, yes, we definitely get help with publicity. We can advertise on the ATA main calendar. We have the GLD website, which is part of the ATA headquarters website, where we can have opportunities to have a blog post. We have our newsletter where we advertise and that sort of thing. So far, our workshops have been only open to GLD members, to ATA members. So it does kind of encourage sometimes the actual German members of our ATA have come to ATA through our events, because we need for people to be division members to be part of everything. But it's usually worth their while. I think at one time, if they become an ATA member, they get to have this event, and compared to the annual conference, which we know is at least a 3-figure number. We started off with our first event was just lunch, Then when we first went into a half-day workshop, I think it cost 18 euros for the afternoon, including a cup of coffee in the meeting room. And this year is the most expensive one because Vienna's a kind of an expensive city, but it still is 136 euros for a 1.5 day event, including lunch. And that's not expensive. And also the Bettina Schreibmeyer-Klassen, who's our boots on the ground, she's found a very inexpensive conference hotel for us to meet in that has rooms for us that are also less than 100 euros a night. So it's great. Some of us are bringing partners with us and kind of making tacking on a day before or afterwards. And so it's a great way to have an educational experience, to combine business and pleasure. Let's put it that way.
What kinds of speakers do you bring in? Are they translation and interpretation specific, or do you branch out a little bit more?
So we started with peer-led sessions, and we started recapping the conference. So those of us who weren't able to make a big trip to the US could get an idea of what speakers at the conference were sharing. And our first professional invited speaker was a professor from the University of Heidelberg who was able to take the local train and was so interested in speaking at our event. She took a very nominal fee, and we threw in a lunch, and she actually stuck around for the sessions as well, the educational sessions, just because she thought it was really interesting. They tend to be university affiliated people. They do in general tend to be people who are either experts in translation and interpreting or artificial intelligence, of course. So we have a university professor this time in Vienna who is going to be talking about prompts that we can use, but there's also a speaker, Michael Bailey, who's local in Vienna, who's going to be talking about being the expert in the lead. So where do we stand as translators, interpreters in this huge revolution that we're going through with artificial intelligence? So I would say, yes, most of our speakers really do have something to do with our profession.
Do you break even financially on the event? Do you lose money? Do you make money?
So we can't lose money because we don't have any backup. So everything we do is self-paying, except for this little bit of subsidy that we get from headquarters, which helps us to secure an invited speaker and know that we can guarantee that they will get paid. We have enough of a following now that we try to budget in a way that makes it affordable for people to come, but also we don't need to have that many paid registrations to cover a year where perhaps for some reason we don't have as many people signing up. But people are extremely creative. I also have been having, in German, we have the word Stammtisch, which is just a table where the regulars meet up, either in a restaurant or in a bar. And so we call them our Stammtisch. A local member will reserve a table in a restaurant. That's obviously no risk because whoever shows up pays for their meal. But last year we had an extended Stammtisch workshop in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. And Matt Bunch, who was on the ground, reserved a meeting room at a library, which cost $10 an hour, I think. So we had it for the afternoon, and we could cancel up until the day before. And so we have to really make sure that we have conditions like that. And that was really important because it was a February and there was a major snowstorm that hit, or it was predicted to dump about 10 inches of snow. And so we actually were expecting people to come up from Virginia and come down from New York. And it ended up being kind of a small group of us just because the snow had actually melted by the time the workshop started, but it was looking like it would be pretty impassable. And so we have to make sure that we're in a situation where we absolutely don't lose money. And that's stipulated actually in the division handbook that we on the one hand, we shouldn't meet at someone's home for liability reasons. So we need to meet in a public place. But most public places, if you want to secure them in advance and have a place where you can give a presentation or something like that, they're not going to do it for free. So we have to be mindful to find places that are neutral ground that we meet in, but aren't too expensive and not high risk either. So no, we've never lost any money. We've always been able to either be in a position to cancel at the last minute if it looks like we don't have enough registrants. But so far that's never been the case.
Yeah, that's a fine line to walk.
Exactly.
What are some of the mistakes that you've learned along the way and improved on?
Gee, I'm not really sure about mistakes. We did actually cut it quite close with one of the events in terms of finances because we kind of misread what the conditions were. Like I think we ordered 2 coffee breaks and we thought the price that we were getting was for 2 coffee breaks, but it turned out it was twice that. And so luckily we had a very good turnout at that workshop, but had it been one where, we didn't have as many as we had hoped for, that we would have had to collect money for them from people after the fact and say, we thought it was going to be 50, but sorry, it's going to be 75 or something like that. So based on that, we've gotten very good at reading the fine print of contracts for signing up for meeting rooms.
So what would you say to other divisions that are thinking about creating their own events locally?
As far as I know, the Italian division has also done a local meetup like that. They don't have an annual thing going like we have. And having the annual thing, what we've decided to do is to alternate between having an event at a conference center like we are this time, because we did find that with having 30 to 40 people and having outside speakers, that it was getting to be a bit much for one volunteer to do most of the work. So, and that, it went down to, I think we were in Leipzig last year at the university, and Ellen practically hand carried the coffee and the cake and everything up to the room, and it was very tiring. And so we decided to use a more professional setting this time, which brought the cost up to about 100, as I said, about 136. However, next year we'll have a retreat center that's very bare bones. I think it's a church sponsored center. And we already know that will be extremely low cost. And so we do know that with the low threshold of A, it's not a long distance for people to come, and B, it's not that expensive. People often do attend our event and decide they want to go to the annual conference in the US to get more networking and at the same time, there just are people in situations where they just can't leave for a week or 10 days to go to a conference for family reasons, let's say, or maybe business is down or whatever it is. So that's our new strategy, is to kind of alternate between a more formal setting, professional setting, more maybe in like a hotel like we'll be in this time, and in a bigger city that's more expensive. And next year's is going to be a little bit off the beaten track in a retreat center. And then we think we might change the focus to be more sort of writing oriented. I don't know if you've noticed, there seems to be, the pendulum seems to be swinging back in the direction of advanced skills events now. So I think for a while there was, oh my gosh, there's a tsunami of how do I deal with AI and how do I deal with DeepL, especially with us German translators, because DeepL was developed here in Germany, and our customers really love DeepL. And for a while they were liking DeepL way better than they were liking us. And so it was looking pretty dire for German English translators and English German translators. But I'm seeing in a lot of different places advanced skills workshops and events coming out again. And I think next year we're planning to focus maybe on having a writing focus where we do translation slam and translation workshops, work on writing skills and that sort of thing, and not just talk about, how do we deal with AI in our present and in our future.
Oh, I wanted to ask another logistics question. How did
Mhm.
you handle registration and taking money? Did you just do
Right.
it manually through email or what?
That was what I did at the beginning. Yeah. So I was using my own account and people were sending me their 15 euros because we pulled off a couple events where we were charging about 15 euros, and that also included a meeting room and a cup of coffee or something like that. And for 15 to 20 people, that was manageable, but then it kind of got out of hand. And we also needed to have definitely prepaid, non-refundable registrations, again, to make sure that if we were reserving a conference room someplace, that we wouldn't end up high and dry. So we used a bunch of different registration softwares. Now, I think Eventbrite is the one that we've stuck with now for a couple of years. That, of course, means that you're adding quite a bit actually to the price of the registration. If you have an event that costs 50 euros, then it's going to, between PayPal fees and Eventbrite itself, you're going to be paying an extra, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 euros or something. But considering that for us to have our GLD networking dinner at the conference, it's costing us like $75 to $80 for the evening. This is a whole weekend's worth of educational events for practically the same price. So yes, definitely using registration software has made life a lot easier, and it made it easier to communicate with people as well, because you can send mass emails to all the registrants, and that's what I would recommend.
What other events do you have planned for the future? Are you sticking with this one conference for now, or have you envisioned expanding it even further?
Yes. So this weekend is Vienna. March 8th, we're having a GLD Stammtisch / workshop together with New York Circle of Translators. And one of our members, Randall Gernot, he's our web manager for the GLD, but he's the treasurer for the New York Circle of Translators. And they have access to a meeting room at a Hunter College for free. And so he's arranged for us to meet there. So basically we'll have a no-cost event except for the price of lunch if people want to get a lunch. And we're planning to talk about the new citizenship laws in Germany, because several of us here have taken the citizenship test, because you can now have dual citizenship in Germany, which didn't used to be the case up until June. So we'll be talking about that and networking. And in the summer, we're planning to do a Pennsylvania Dutch Day. So we're having an expert come from Wisconsin, a professor, and he's going to be basically doing a whole day's worth of workshops. And there we are hoping to pair with the Delaware Valley Translators Association, DVTA, as it's called our co-locators. That's the ATA speak for pairing up with the local chapter. So so we have a lot going on this year. And then we always have our regular networking event that's similar to what most of the other divisions do at the conference. However, this year we could probably use the local Goethe Institute, which is the German cultural organization. There's one located in Boston. And so that should allow us to, again, have a non-restaurant based social event, which will be nice.
Neat. Well, you guys are busy, busy. And I hope this inspires other divisions, including my own beloved French language division, to maybe do some more local events. It sounds really neat.
Somehow we've decided we like webinars and we like seeing each other for social events, but we really, really like meeting in person. And some of us have made some really, really fast and deep friendships among other members. And in addition to having professional collaborations, so I can only recommend it. And of course, if anyone wants any tips, I'm happy to pass on my advice. And I'm finding that ATA headquarters is also very helpful. The divisions manager and the board are very open to events of this type, and don't be afraid to try.
Neat. All right. Well, food for thought. Maybe I'll have to put something together near me. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here today, Karen.
Well, thank you, Andy, for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap. To learn more about the American Translators Association, including how to join, visit atanet.org. Until next time.